Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the reconvened meeting of the November 19, 2019 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. We would like to welcome those that are watching online and at home streaming. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Director Hendricks, Director Richardson, Director Webb, Director Peck, Director Hines, Director Wright, Director Compuris, Director Fortson, Director Adcock, Vice Mayor Wyrick, Mayor Scott.
Present. We have one modification to the agenda for tonight. Item 2 will be deferred until December the 3rd, 2019. Do I have a motion to defer item 2 until December the 3rd? There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. We will now move forward. Mr. Moore? Oh. We will now move forward with the discussion of the Little Rock City Board of Directors 2020 budget. And we'll start off, I think we look at our agenda cards. Madam Clerk, do we have all the agenda cards?
That's all I had received.
All right. We'll now move forward and see if there are any questions from the members of the board on today's budget. Just because we do have two people who did give comment cards, well, we'll first start just so, even though they did give comment cards on glass recycling, I'll let them share their comments on glass recycling, and then also understand that we won't vote until December 3rd. Ms. Linda Bell. Ms. Bell.
Okay, Mr. Mayor and Board. Please understand, I am not against recycling. I recycle for my church, the van, and even for myself. And the items that I can't recycle, I send to Oklahoma with a friend. So I do appreciate ACE Recycling, that they're doing this program for us. What I object to is another mandatory fee to households that are already struggling to make ends meet. We had a raise in our water fee, but that depends on usage, so that's okay. But the board recently voted a $7 plus added fee to garbage pickup. Now I still have one little small bag of trash, and we are recycling less, now only cardboard, plastic bottles that we shouldn't even use, white paper mail, and newspapers, which are rapidly disappearing. And has our fee for the recycling gone down? No. So I do feel that it is onerous to ask us to pay $3 for glass recycling when those people that can afford it can pay $10 and have it picked up at their doorstep. And the rest of us can take our one wine bottle a month over to the Edwards or to one of the other 17 recycling places. I do object to this additional mandatory fee, and I hope that you will consider it carefully before you vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bell. Mr. Courtney Little.
Thank you, Mayor and Directors. I appreciate y'all. I'll be really quick. I just wanted to be here in case it didn't get deferred tonight. Just really quickly, we understand that we all don't like new fees and things like that, but this is an essential item that people in Little Rock have asked for, have contacted us, have contacted y'all, and have said we want this done. And studies showed that if we pull glass recycling out of the recycling stream in Little Rock, it won't just affect glass, it affects everything else that people back off from it. So the reason that we got into this, we surveyed, we asked people, do we want to do this? We did not want to waste the board's time, we did not want to waste the citizens' time, but we came back overwhelmingly, we want glass recycling, and we feel like it's very important for our community to have this available because companies looking at Little Rock and people looking to move here expect that to be part of our recycling program. And I don't want to lose potential professionals and companies not coming to Little Rock because we don't have an essential service that people expect. So we've done everything in our power to keep that price down, and we're price conscious to the citizens who that affects. But we implore this board to do this and help us keep Little Rock moving forward together, doing positive things, so that when people look at us, they see the best in us and not that we're taking a step back from recycling. So.
Thank you so much, Mr. Little. Director Adcock.
I have a question of him. Would you please tell me how you did your survey and who did you survey?
So we used a political survey, a person who's hit people from every single ward. They did both phone calls and mail to them. So we contacted two different ways, and they hit I think it was over 500 people were surveyed, but they hit every single ward, and it came back over 60% of people. I think it was 67% of people wanted recycling, even if there was a nominal fee included in that. And so, like I said, before we made a decision to pursue this with the city, we wanted to make sure that we weren't running down a track, because we believe in it, the sustainability just in general, that's the right thing to do, but we wanted to make sure that we had
Who
other
did
people.
this survey?
I don't have the guy's name offhand, but I can get that for
Okay,
you.
and when you say we, who are you talking about?
My team,
Is that Ace Glass Company?
Ace Class Recycling, yes ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions from the board regarding glass recycling? Seeing none, we will take up glass recycling on December the 3rd. Director Hendricks. Do we have all the cards?
The card, you had hit the gavel, and we were told we could not speak because you had hit the gavel.
Did you already have them filled out?
Yes,
Did you just didn't place them?
I just didn't place them.
We'll allow you to speak. I'm sure you're going to speak on behalf of the South End?
Yes, sir.
All right. Because I knew you had one, so. Thank you. Yes, just yes, ma'am. She's going to speak on behalf of the South End.
Good evening to the mayor, board, and our Bruce Moore, our city manager. I'm here in regards to the $3.39 recycling fee. In our area, it is called a hardship fee. The people in our area are barely recycling as it is. And then you want to tax a $3.39 to what is already a hardship fee. Our water bills are outrageous as it is. And to pay that month to month for some of those whose income is less than $1,200 a month. People are operating on $700 a month and cannot afford to be taxed for something that they are not doing anyway. Most of the people in our area cannot afford glass things. Most of the things we purchase now are plastic. We are doing as much plastic recycling and paper recycling as we can do. But not all of us are doing that either because we can't afford it. Now, you've gone up on the 31% tax increase, you've gone up on that. Most people don't even know that's happening. So why the public have not been informed about this fee coming to the forefront is unbelievable to me. We should at least have a voice in what you're doing on the board before it even get to a point of voting. The people in my area, well, if using this particular fee, will pay about $40 a year just to do something that they're not doing. They don't recycle paper. They don't recycle glass. Most of them can't afford it. The other thing is that the recycling fee that we already are paying is just getting less than half of the people doing that. So why keep taxing people for something that they're not doing anyway? And if you're going to re-tax, get a fee for me for that particular month, for that year that you're all asking for, take it off the front. Because I can't afford to pay a $100 water bill. And with the excess fees and the finance fees and all of this going into that, how can we afford to pay and eat at the same time? Most of us on medication is outrageous. Our utility bills are one thing that we have to have. And to take something that's precious in our neighborhood is outrageous. So I oppose it, and my neighborhood as well opposes it.
Thank you so much. Ms. Ruby Jeffries.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also speaking on behalf of the South End Neighborhood Association Coalition, and we are against the recycling of the curbside glass recycling services. It will not work in our area. We cannot afford the fee. The fee is not justifiable. There are other services or other places that glassware can be taken to without taxing all the neighbors in the city of Little Rock. This $3.39 is not feasible for the resident of the Little Rock. Thank you. And we're asking that you consider voting against this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Members of the board, due to the fact that we do not have the procedural quorum to move to a second reading, we have to have 8 members of the board to move to the second reading. We will defer the budget vote until December the 3rd, as well as with glass recycling. But we also want to offer this opportunity if there are any questions that we can address those questions at this point in time. So open the floor for any questions. Director Adcock.
Mayor, I've received several telephone calls today. Rachel did a good job in her article. Evidently because I received lots of calls. Most people would like to have an explanation of what a community school model is, also what wraparound services are, and how these are going to be paid for out of the city budget.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you give us an explanation of wraparound services and community services model?
Yes, ma'am. As we've shared with the board last week and have shared with the board since speaking with the members of the board, that we would target prevention, intervention, treatment dollars on October the 9th. We visited with the board, and we then had many members of the board who were able to attend at that point in time stand before a press conference. We shared that we would be engaging with the Little Rock School District focused on a community schools model. And a community school model, it's something that's not foreign to the nation in regards to assisting challenged schools within local school districts and providing wraparound services. And so you create a true community with particular schools. Many times they are either in low-income, distressed areas, and or they're, depending on their grading system, do not have high-achieving scores. And many times the reason why children are not excelling within those grading structures that are presented by the State Board of Education, with whether it's the state of Arkansas, any state, it's because of certain things that may be happening within the community in which our children are living within, dealing with poverty, food insecurity, health insecurity. And so from a wraparound services standpoint, there are different measures from as simple as making sure that all children have 3 meals a day as a part of wraparound services, to as complex as ensuring that students that are in need of social workers to be housed at schools, mental health workers to be housed at schools, deal to different trauma that they may experience, whether it's from domestic violence in the home or for things of that nature. So that's a very simplistic view, but I think it's very common knowledge what wraparound services are. It's truly to wrap around the child to ensure that anything that's going on outside of the classroom at their home to best afford them to provide as an aid or assistance, a safety net to them, so when they get to the classroom that they have all of their needs met, that they can focus on their scholastics
why could the school district not provide these social services and also the mental health?
Many of the things, school districts are already providing certain social services, so there are certain schools that do have it. Within anything, it's a part of the process with the Little Rock School District. They can only do so much, and I think this is a part of play where the city of Little Rock can be engaged and invested in.
Will we be providing the money for social workers and mental health workers?
We will be providing dollars based upon wraparound services for students. So it could be social workers, it could be extra meal for the children, it could be mental health providers. That will all be decided based on a request for proposals where non-governmental entities, nonprofits, associations will then provide specific wraparound service. So one organization may provide social workers, another organization may provide food, another organization may provide health screenings. And so depending on what those particular entities apply for through our prevention intervention treatment program, they then will come before the board after they've gone through a vetting process. As we all know, within prevention intervention treatment, the children and families commission will then come, will review those particular contracts. As you know, City Director Kathy Webb is a part of that as the board liaison as well as a board member. After they make that review, they then will come before the board. If anything is over $50,000 as it relates to that contract, has to come before the board for approval, just like you would with any other organization or contract that's receiving dollars from the PIT funds.
I think that another question was, how do we select the schools? And you've already said they're in low-income areas and everything. Most of the schools in Southwest Little Rock qualifies for that type of service. So will the buses run later in the day so children will have transportation?
There will be, we have been in some discussions with Rock Region Metro to serve as a possible provider. That, again, those details have to be worked out. And first, you have to have an organization that wants to submit for those particular schools. And so just so you're aware, the schools within, as you know, the state accepted many of our city's proposal on October the 10th, particularly with the community schools model and wraparound services. And as of right now, based on the state grading level of schools that are around the F score, I believe, I'm just going off from memory right now, I think it's about 8 schools. Baseline Elementary would be one of the schools. Hall High School would be another. Cloverdale would be another. And I can get you the other 5, but those particular schools would be the schools that are provided assistance.
In the memo that you sent us this week, November the 20th,
Yes, ma'am.
you stated that the Commission on Children, Youth, and Family provides recommendation and are reviewed by the Executive Administration. Who is the Executive Administration?
The Executive Administration includes the mayor, which is the chief executive officer, the city manager, which is the chief administrative officer. Also part of the Executive Administration are the staffs between the two of us all in together in one. So that would be our, I mean, it's a number of people I think that you're all aware of.
Okay. Well, I was just concerned that that did not say the city board.
The reason why it does not say the city board, because the executive administration includes the executive administration, which is the management of the city of Little Rock, which is the chief executive officer, chief administrative officer. The board is a policy-making entity, and that's the reason why anything over $50,000, the legislative body, being the city board of directors, has to approve those contracts as you've done every year.
Okay. On another subject, a person called and they was talking about the 21 million. That 21 million seems like a lots of money to some people.
21 million. What do you
21
reference?
million is the amount of money in the street fund.
Okay, so we're moving from community schools. I just want to make sure for the public knows. So we're now moving from the community schools model to the street fund. Okay.
There's $21 million left in the street fund. And they was pointing out to me that the cost of repairing Bowman Road from Canis to, I guess it's Colonel Glenn, would cost $22 million. So although that looks like a lots of money, if we undertook a lots of the big projects that we need, it could wipe out that money in 1 year. And so although we talk about 21 million as a large sum in the street fund, one big project in this city could wipe that out. And he wanted me to be sure and point that out to people, that that is not a lots of money when you're talking about drainage and streets.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Moore, could you please just kind of give a historical context?
Sure. I believe that the individual might be referring to just the annual allocation that comes into the street fund. As I mentioned earlier to Director Adcock, the majority of our major projects, as we are doing right now, are done through our bond issues that the board has historically had and the voters have passed. For instance, in 2012, it was $110 million that we now have done. We're into the third phase of those projects. And so that's how we pay, besides the Boundary Street Ordinance, which is how streets get developed in Little Rock. So I believe he's referring to just the annual revenue and annual expenditures that come into that fund.
Okay, I think 21 million someplace was where we saw that it was going to, after we took the 2 million out, that would be the balance in the street fund. So also I had asked of Ronnie Lowe to have some figures for me, and they wasn't here when I got here this afternoon. But one other street we was looking at was South Loop. What was the cost when we put in South Loop? And if we're going to extend that the rest of the way, what would be the cost?
Mr. Honeywell?
That was a short vacation.
Yes, ma'am.
They told me you was on vacation this morning, so. And I think your answer machine said that also.
Would that be Sue?
No, never did get Sue today.
Oh, okay.
Whenever they connected me to your phone in your office.
Oh, okay. All right. So for South Loop, the part that we've built so far, which is basically from Mableville West south to Alexander Road, that was a $10 million project. Okay. About 80% of that project was actually done through federal funding. Okay. That short section was $10 million. That did include a railroad overpass, which is expensive to build. To complete the rest of South Loop going all the way around back to 530 and around over to the industrial park, we don't have a hard number at this point. There were some estimates done back, I think, in the 80s that had that number at something that we have to go back and really look at that to see how things have changed in the last 30 or 40 years to give you a good number. But let's put it this way, it's going to be tens of millions of dollars to try to build South Loop around the south end of the city.
In 2012, you had a figure that we went to the taxpayers with of how much infrastructure needs we have in this city. Do you have an updated figure on how much infrastructure needs we have in the city?
We have not necessarily updated that list. That it was somewhere over $1 billion if you took, if we wanted to take every single road that the city had that was not up to the current standard and rebuild all of those, fix all of the drainage issues that we were aware of, that number was over $1 billion.
Okay. Okay, so $21 million is a drop in the bucket of what we need.
Yes, ma'am. And the street fund budget that we're talking about passing, that's basically our operating budget. That's what we use for employees' compensation. We use that to buy materials with for the maintenance work that we do. It helps do all the pay for street lights. It helps pay for traffic. It's that kind of stuff is what that goes to. The money that's in the street fund budget is really not capital projects. It's very, very small amount of that.
Glad you said street lights. Can you give us any kind of an update to the people of Chenal that was here last week?
It's the same message that I had last week. It's not a warranted signal intersection. However, we are continuing to look at some things we can try to do to make it better, to address some of their concerns.
Someone said that you've been having trouble getting reports from the police on accidents on that street?
Well, the way the system works with the state police now, that system has been changed, and we're working, it's the reporting out of that system. It's not, it's something that we're working through, trying to get reports easier out of that system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I can tell you that we do have, in the last year, there were 3 accidents in that general vicinity. We don't have the details of those accidents. If they were actually in the intersection, they were close to the intersection. That's part of that reporting details that we're having difficulty searching through in that system.
Okay, thank you.
So, Director Honeywell, we're just going to let Director Hines, give you an answer on the LRPD, and then we'll go to Director Webb.
And actually, what I've heard is, in our reporting system for LRPD, it's really, and Mayor Scott, we may need to share this with the chief. It's a training issue with our field officers. There's a box that they check that will geolocate where the accident is, and they're not doing it. That's what I've heard. That's what I've been told from a good source within the police department. So that may be something we want to address with the police chief.
That's not unfamiliar to me, and we have spoken with the police chief about
Okay.
that. That's something
All right.
we're working on.
Well, I mean,
Well, Assistant Chief Bewley, if you'll just remind me we all just have a discussion with Chief Humphrey, and we'll figure that out. Thank you, Chief Bewley. Thank you. Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to go back to CYF for just a minute, if I may, and also like to point out that I've had the privilege of serving as the liaison with my colleague, Director Hines, who was the voting member, and now I'm the voting member. But I just wanted to say that for the last couple of years on that commission, there's hardly been a single meeting where we have not brought up the fact that there are 5,500 youth in our city between the ages of 18 and 24 who are not in school, who are not employed, and who are not in job training. And so almost every program we have looked at has been through the lens of how do we lower that number, and that starts with 0 to 5, and then 6 to 11, and all of that. So that number is constantly in our minds, and as we've looked at the programs to help the kids reach their potential, like social and emotional learning, which we've sent people from the Little Rock School District, we've sent people from the city to visit some of the other communities like Louisville, who have they're spending millions of dollars on SEL programs, and we're starting to, do some pilots, and we've had some small grants that CYF has done with social and emotional learning, and we've talked about the summer slide. So from my perspective, as somebody who's been on this commission since I've been here, but who also has the privilege of doing some of this work during my day job, that we're actually even really focusing more on these particular schools and communities, I think is something to be applauded, and that we're digging in the way we are is, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a positive thing, and I'm glad that you stepped up a few months ago, and I think this is what the commission has been working towards over the last 18 months or so, to really be focused and make sure every program, every taxpayer penny that we spend is, if not evidence-based, close to it. We're spending money on programs that work so these kids can reach their full potential.
Thank you so much, Director Webb. I should have yielded my response time when Director Adcock asked me what a community schools model was in wraparound service, and just diverted it to you. You gave a very eloquent definition. So thank you for that. And also, we look forward to working with you and the CYF moving forward. Director Wright.
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Honeywell, come back, please. Something he said reminded me of a question I'd gotten from one of my constituents regarding their street. Okay, you said that the street fund, you pay staff and buy some materials and things like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's our operating budget. It's not necessarily the capital budget that we use to go build a street or build a new drainage structure. Now, if there's a curb inlet that's been broken or a pothole, that's the money we use to do that kind of work with, is that repair and maintenance of stuff, not building new stuff.
So that's in addition to your general fund allocation?
We get no general fund allocation
This is
for
strictly
streets. Yes, ma'am.
So when they ask me that question, I can respond, because people are going to hear that 21 million and think, why didn't I get my street done?
Ma'am.
All right, thank you.
We use the capital fund, the sales tax and the
I
bond funding.
understand that.
That's what we use to do the capital.
Because, you know, each ward got an allocation, and
Yes,
those
ma'am.
funds were allocated out, and then I had some streets come up, people come up later and say that they want their street done. Well, the money had already been allocated.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
when they hear 21 million, that's gonna say, okay, my street, you said it'd be called about 350,000. Why can't they use the street fund? So I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Campuris.
Mayor, would you go over step by step? When we pass the budget, we'll have $5.5 million, $6 million in PIT, correct?
Well, the budget, and Mr. Moore, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it the correct way. The budget, the 2020 budget has allotted for PIT 4.75 million. However, due to community programs being a grant administrator and how we pay our contractors, we pay after work has been done rather than up front. And so due to that, there's generally a lag in payment and there's a lag in services being rendered. And so in addition to the 4.75 million, we do have a balance within the PIT account of somewhere around $1 million, $1.5 million, which would make that number. But from a budgeting standpoint, we only budget for the 4.75.
That's fine. Let's just take the budgeted money. And I agree with Kathy that helping kids obtain their potential is the important thing to do. There's something, and you and I've talked about this last night, and I've talked to Charles Blake about it last night for a long time. Before the money we appropriate would go to Kathy and Lance's group for assessment, is that correct?
Yes.
That's what's going to happen this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they then would seek help on how to do those services, or would they say, this is our priority and this is what we want to do?
It's probably better for, generally what happens is we will have a focus, there's a traditional focus of what prevention, intervention, and treatment is, and including in part of prevention and intervention and treatment for the 2020 year, we will have a special focus on wraparound services within the residencies of those challenged schools of the Little Rock School District to focus on a community schools model. And a community schools model is it's not like an actual building. It's wraparound services that are interconnected with one. And so there could be one entity that could provide wraparound services. There could be 5 or 7 entities, but those entities would then have to respond to a RFP and then go before the CYF for assessment. And then after that assessment, depending on what the contract amounts are, would come back to this board, as it did last year and the year before that, to be voted on.
Well, if we want to, or my suggestion to you and Charles and Bruce would be, if we're going to do that, and since we can't vote tonight on this, that we have something in the budget that says some percentage of that money we want to go to those services, up to that some percentage, so that it's very clear on how we're doing this and what's going on.
Thank you so much. Mr. Moore, you wanted?
Well, one of the things I think when we, and I understand what Director Pierce is saying, but also when we look at our PIT programs, there is connections around education in schools throughout this really over $5 million. So I think that's important to note, that not only we talked about these wraparound services and sort of education piece, but I think that's what Director Webb was saying, when there's really been a targeted focus in this area of education and partnering with the school district. So when we say percentage, or I think it's important that we look at the entire scope.
I agree with you, but this is different than we've done before. And I agree with what we're doing, but I think if we're going to do it, we need to clearly state what we're doing if we're going to vote on it. And that's what, I mean, y'all can work it out if you want to do it. I mean, I think it makes it clear what our purpose is, why we're doing it, and how we're going to do it, and we move forward with it.
And Director Capiris, we definitely understand where you're coming from, and that's something we will definitely have time to look into that. I think understanding the current process that this board put in place with the CYF, a lot of that is happening through that process. Would you agree, Director Webb? You do agree, Director Webb? Yes. Director Capiris?
But that's what they internally look at. What we're saying is a policy that we want this done and directing them to look at it this way. And I think it's a more positive step in saying this is what this board is saying we want done, and you look at the programs that facilitate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Director Adcock?
I think right now there's some fear in some of our programs out in the community that we're changing everything to this community schools and everything to the wraparound services, and they wonder what that's going to do to their individual programs that they have in the community right now that their children are involved in. So I'm like Dean. I think that maybe it would calm everyone's fear if we knew there was a percentage that would be allowed for new programs that also we're not going to move away from the neighborhood community programs that we already have in the community.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing that. Director Webb?
I think Director Hendricks was looking at, and then I'll respond.
Oh, I'm sorry. Director Hendricks?
My comment on this discussion is that I know we have a right to say certain things, but I know that Director Webb has worked real hard on this program. And it's an old saying, things ain't what they used to be. It's a new day down here. And I think as soon as we recognize this, the better we can get along with each other. It's a new day. We have new ideas. We have an energetic mayor working along with Director Webb. That's all I got to say. And I'm going to continue to say it. It is a new day.
Thank you, Director Hendricks. Director Webb?
Okay, thank you. And I think, the commission has worked really hard to make sure that the programs are quality programs and to reassure Director Adcock and some of those other folks. They're after-school programs that are in the communities, and I think those are part of wraparound services, and summer programs are part of that because we have the summer slide. If kids don't have the tutoring and they don't have places to go and they don't get the summer meals. So I think it has been the focus of the commission the last couple of years to make sure those programs that we have are quality programs. And so I think the folks who are running those quality programs have not anything to worry about. The commission goes on a field trip every month and we go out and visit the programs. And we have a monitor who brings us information. We have a committee that works on that as well. So, we have some great programs out there in the neighborhoods, and I think that will be an integrated part of this wraparound service. If I can just go on for just another minute, like at our alma mater, we have a social worker. We have 14.
What's your alma mater?
The best high school, Hall High School.
Little Rock Parkview, or?
Central High.
We do have 3 out of 10 members of the Little Rock City Board who graduated from Hall High, and I'll leave it at that. But we have a social worker. We have 14 interns. We know the kids at Hall weren't getting enough proper nutrition. We started a breakfast smoothie program there. We have a mountain bike program now at Hall High, and we knew a lot of the kids didn't know how to ride a bicycle. And, so we know that if you have one intervention, that makes a difference. If you have 2, that's better. If you have 4 or 5, then you're really going to be able to help those kids reach their full potential. So I think with the focus from CYF and this board and this mayor and our city manager, that's what we're going to have. We're going to have that focus, and those kids are going to get what they need. So let's do it.
Thank you so much. And again, I just, before we go to Director Wright, I think this is just exciting to see the board on one accord because we're all focused on how we're going to be engaged with the Little Rock School District from a community schools model. We'll figure out the details as they go along. But again, this is just awesome to see the board on one accord. And thank every member of the board for that commitment to the Little Rock School District. Director Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo some of the things I've heard, that I'm in support of the community schools model. As you know, that at West Central, we were the recipients of a 21st Century After School grant from the state, and it's a 5-year grant. And what we do is an after-school program targeting one of our schools in the area that is listed as an F school. And we're already preparing for 2020. When that school closes and they combine the elementary and the middle. So we're putting strategies in place to work with them. So I'm excited to know that we will be able to assist them with some of the other aspects of programming that they need, such as conflict mediation and that type of thing, and social emotional learning concepts. But we focus on STEM, and I'm proud to say that of the 60 kids that we have, there is not a grade below C. We've been able to get their grades up, and we focus on reading, math, and science, and technology, that kind of thing. Also, too, I wanted to add that about 5 years ago, maybe not quite five, but we charged our community programs department with the development and implementation of a youth master plan. I would like to make sure that we update and revise that plan to include the community schools model, so that our staff is continuing to follow the blueprint that we paid quite a bit of money to have them put together. So if we could make sure that that is revised, if it doesn't already include it, I don't think so, but it needs to be revised and updated to include this new model that we're working on.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, you want to speak to that? That was kind of before my time.
Director Wright is right. Probably 6 years ago, because I think we're in the 5th year, we started the process for the Youth Master Plan. We're pretty much on target, and Director Adcock asked for an update, and I know the staff gives the CYF a regular update, and so I think it is appropriate. And again, some of it, if we look at it, is probably already in there. It might not say community schools model, because again, the services that we've been providing, utilizing these dollars, fall right within that model.
Yeah, I just think the terminology needs to be included, and I don't think that would be a difficult task to do.
I agree.
So that way, Mayor, we're being consistent, and our staff is following the blueprint, because it's, you just don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, because we're not changing anything other than really just improving. So I commend you and Kathy and Lance on your work with the CYF, and I'll continue to do my part.
Well, thank you for all that you're doing in Ward 6. You have really been a trendsetter in that mode, and congratulations on the 21st Century grant that you've got for, I believe, for Henderson Middle School, for West Central Community Center. And again, this is a team effort from every member of this board of directors.
Also, too, we have the ability to amend our grant to add elementary. At the time, Romine did not want to participate, but they have a new principal now. So we may be doing an amendment to add them in there, because that was the original focus from elementary to middle, to track those kids, because Henderson was having so many problems with them coming in there not being able to read.
Yes, ma'am. Understanding now that we're fast approaching the Thanksgiving holiday, I'm smelling my mother's sweet potato pie already. And so I'm excited about it. I know many of the board members are ready to celebrate this great holiday. What we will do is now just kind of give for everyone in the audience and online the next steps right now. We have deferred the vote on both the Little Rock 2020 budget as well as glass recycling to December 3rd. I will then call for a motion to adjourn. Well, there's a motion in a second, but now I got a little time to talk within that motion in a second. After we adjourn this meeting, because I'm assuming everyone's going to say aye, we will then move swiftly to our agenda meeting, and I just got a strong hunch our agenda meeting won't last long. And we have canceled the succeeding policy meeting. And so that will be the next steps. There's been a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. This meeting now been adjourned. We'll now begin today's agenda meeting. Starting now, our agenda meeting to set the agenda for the December 3rd board meeting.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Any questions from 1 through 9, I believe, and Director Wright?
4.
Everyone, happy Thanksgiving to those that are departing.
Mayor, don't forget you have 2 modifications on there as well.
Oh, well, Director Wright, if you would oblige me, I will first get these 2 modifications, and we'll come back to you, if that's okay?
Yes.
Is there a motion to
Add.
add item, I'm looking at the wrong, M1? Is there a motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We will now add M1. Is there a motion to add M2? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll add M2. We'll now move towards the consent agenda. Director Wright on questions 1 through 9.
On item resolution 4.
Resolution.
I need staff.
Mr. John Eckert.
Good afternoon, Director Wright.
Can you give me an explanation of this?
Yes, ma'am. This is the, we went out for a bid, an RFP for soda sales. It's called a pouring rights bid for all of our parks facilities. So it'd be all of our golf courses, all of our community centers, our tennis center, things like that. So, and all of our buildings would have vending machines as well. That would be this company.
What if you don't want a vending machine in a community center? Why?
So if there are vending machines there currently, there will be vending machines there going forward.
They're
As
not
far as
vending machines?
Adding the machines, I don't think we added any machines. But I have
If
to
there
double-check
is
that.
not a vending machine at a community center, will you add a vending machine?
We're not planning on adding any vending machines at any site.
So what you're saying is that all the community centers have to sell Pepsi products?
Correct.
What was I don't understand I'd like to see the RFQ or whatever you did, Mr. Carpenter. Can I get a look at that to see what that entailed and what you are saying? Because I know at West Central, we sell a lot of drinks, and Pepsi products are not that popular. And I don't want us to not be able to have revenue generation because of that. So is it possible to pull West Central out of this?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty
Mr. Carpenter, where'd he go?
collaborative or encompassing bid. It's for all of our facilities.
I need the city attorney to advise on that.
Okay.
Because it's a lot cheaper to buy drinks from Kroger than it is from Pepsi. That way we can sell them and make a profit.
No, I understand. And obviously, as part of this vendor would obviously give us some sponsorship funds to the department, as well as some marketing funds.
I need to see what all of that entailed. Sure. I need to see each bid that came in. I want to see the proposal. Then I want to see each bid and what made you select this one. And
we only had 2 bids, and only one of them was met the threshold for being responsive. So this was the only bid that was
Mr. Carpenter, can I get a look at the bid that we received, the RFQ and the bid?
Director Wright, of course, you can have a review of any document you wish to see. The only question for the board is going to be whether to accept or reject the recommendation.
I want to see what it entails and what we are required to do, what we are approving here.
And what are we receiving?
And which we're receiving.
Okay.
That's not a problem.
So, Mayor, I'd like this held separate and taken off the consent agenda.
For number 4. And Mr. Moore, did you have a comment you wanted to share at all?
I think the most important thing that John said was, once we put out an RFP, and this is something we've actually put out the second time, and before it even gets to committee, It's reviewed just from a technical standpoint, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the second bid wasn't responsive.
So both bids were reviewed and graded, but you're correct, it didn't meet a threshold which would then make it a responsive bid.
We'll provide the RFP and the 2 responses, and we'll have that to you by Friday.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Director Adcock?
Yes. Does this include other departments besides Parks and Recreation?
No, ma'am, this is purely Parks and Recreation facilities.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions from 1 through 9? Oh, you had another question, Director Adcock? Sorry about that.
Like 6, 7, and 8, and it's the same question for all 3.
Okay.
This is all insurance for our employees. And Mr. Moore, I'd like to know the cost to our employees and what type of benefit is it to them. It's dental, life insurance, and vision.
So Director Adcock, if you would oblige, what I would like to do is ask Stacy Witherell, our Chief People Officer, to answer those questions for you.
Fine. Stacy, I'd like to know what employees are covered and what costs to the employees.
Sure. Mayor Scott, Board of Directors, Director Adcock, the city provides employee coverage free of cost to the employee for the dental, the life insurance, and the vision coverage. So that's paid 100% by the city.
And what benefit cost is this for the employees? I think what I'm looking for is we're asking them now to pay a portion of their health insurance. So I want to point out to the public and to the employees that we still have these benefits that is available to them. So is there a cost that this benefit is?
The coverage is free to the employee. The city pays 100% of the premium for dental, vision, and life, and AD&D.
Okay, but
So-
what is the benefit? What cost benefit is that to employees? Is this worth $500 a year? Is this worth $1,000 a year?
I can get you that. That information is provided to employees on their benefits statement, and that'll be coming out in the first quarter. So they can see what the total compensation package is that is provided to them from the city of Little Rock. So they will see what the cost of those premiums are.
Well, I would like maybe by next week for you to be able to tell us what that benefit would be, or around what it would be.
What the
'Cause
cost
I-
is to the city
because I
to
would
provide
like
this.
for the public to know too, the benefit it is to the city,
Certainly, be
to
happy
the
to.
employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adcock. Do we have any questions on items 10 through 11? Any questions on separate items 12 through 13? Director Wright?
Mayor, I'm sorry, mine is on 14 and 15. Not 15, but 14.
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Is this all of this is the same? I'm seeing 10 and 11, and it all looks like it's dealing with Canis and Embassy Suites. So what's the difference, Mr. Manager?
We'll ask Director Collins to please come up.
Let's see what map maybe give you the deal of it all.
Might have just start
It's
with
all
10.
the same property.
Yeah.
There's 3 items that the hearing for this agenda. One of them would be the abandonment. There is a right-of-way that was an old track land right-of-way that roadway never got extended and built, that Embassy Suites now kind of jogs over to the west and goes down. So that's the abandonment. And then the 2 other items for the same 2 pieces of property that would be on either side of that currently existing right-of-way we have purchased those properties, in the Canis Road improvement. And what this is a rezoning of the properties, and is also a redoing of the land use plan to accommodate and mirror what the zoning would be. Because right now the current zoning is office zoning. And so we're going to a C3 zoning, and so the land use plan also needs to change to mirror that, the proposed zoning. So those are the three items that is before the board. So the rezoning, the amendment to the land use plan, and the abandonment of the right-of-way.
Okay.
And it is all tied to the same 2 tracts of land.
Any objections? So many.
We had no objections. There was a comment received from a consultant developer in regards to a utility line, sewer line proposed to run down through there. And we have met with them and accommodated that relocation. And when that gets done, there'll be an easement dedicated.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for items 14 through 15 that are held separately? Seeing none, I do want to, a couple different things just for planning purposes. I'll try to get with each, Mr. Parliamentarian, is it okay if I get with board members individually for a scheduling process? One of the things that we've discussed as the board going on a retreat, and we will try to figure out this board retreat sometime towards the end of December or early in January, and just wanted to let the board members know that we'll be calling, just try to get on everyone's schedule to see if we can make that happen. If not, we'll try to figure out how to coordinate schedules as best as possible. Director Hendricks?
I wanted to ask you if Mr. Moore, along with Attorney Carpenter, could prepare for us an ordinance that would deal with this curbside pickups and where we will make money for the city. And I want to thank you and Mr. Moore for attending to a crisis that happened today.
Yes, ma'am. And we're grateful that you alerted that to us, and thankful to the members of the Public Works for addressing that swiftly. Mr. Carpenter, if you would, let's put that on high priority to be discussed at our next policy meeting.
Also, too, Mayor, if you would give me an update on the foreclosure registry.
Yes, we have, due to the budget, we have not had an opportunity to look into that, but we will do swiftly. We've just been with the budget, but we will look into that quickly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, this meeting is now adjourned. See everyone on December 3rd.
Happy holiday.
Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving.